Yo, what's going on, guys? Dr. Ethan Turner with the Fantasy Headliners, and we got a house call during the middle of the week. JaMarr Chase, Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver with a hip flexor avulsion fracture. What the heck is that? I'm going to tell you what that is, why you should care about it for your fantasy team, and what you should be doing to prep your team, because this is serious. I'm a headliner. All right, let's get into it, guys. What the heck is a hip flexor avulsion fracture? Well, an avulsion fracture is when the muscle is actually, and tendon is trying to pull off where it attaches at on the bone. And so when we're talking about a hip flexor, that's right on the femur where it attaches at the lesser trochanter, which is a little bitty knob of the bone of the femur that sticks out where that muscle attaches. What's happening is, and what they're seeing on x-rays most likely, is that that muscle is starting to actually pull away from the bone, a portion of the bone. That's what a avulsion fracture is. It's avulsing the bone. Pretty scary sounding thing. The good news is that the timeline that we're seeing for that they're giving him is 4 to 6 weeks, which is normal recovery timeline for a bone fracture to heal, which tells me that the avulsion piece, the piece of the bone that's coming off, has not fully detached from the bone. If it had, they would have to go in, do surgery, and actually screw that bone back in place and then let the bone heal. They think that the bone can heal on its own. That is a good sign. The problem is I still think 4 to 6 weeks, a little generous on the timeline right now. 4 weeks for a bone fracture to heal is very generous. Typically, you're looking at about 6 weeks. The research that I have found on avulsion fractures across all athletes, now this isn't NFL athletes, but just athletes in general, you're looking at about 6 to 12 weeks. Most of them are coming back at 10 weeks. So 4 weeks is very, very generous. I don't trust that timeline. Just know that JaMarr Chase probably going on IR, and we might not hear a whole lot about this, and it's a waiting game from a rehab perspective. We're not allowed to really do a lot of extensive rehab with this, because the more that muscle pulls on the bone, the worse the fracture gets. So you basically have to just not do anything and wait for the bone to heal and hope that it heals correctly. That's not what you want to hear. That's not what I want to hear from a fantasy perspective. We have to look at this as probably going on IR. We have no idea timeline-wise where he's going to be at. If I had to guess, 6 to 10 weeks is probably a better timeline for this type of injury. Looking at the Cincinnati Bengals offense, we're really in the dark here as far as what it means for this offense when JaMarr Chase is not playing, because we haven't seen it last year or this year. JaMarr Chase has always played. We have no in-out splits with him. When he's not on the field, it's very, very rare. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if I had to speculate, we can just assume the most likely thing would happen, which is T. Higgins stepping into a wide receiver 1 role from a target perspective. This dude could be getting 10 to 15 targets every single week for the rest of the season. Tyler Boyd stepping up what was a flex option, probably closer to that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 range week to week. And we've seen that Tyler Boyd can absolutely blow up. This could be a chance for Tyler Boyd to step into a consistent wide receiver 2 role each and every week for your fantasy team. Not a bad deal. The whole thing is a bad deal because of JaMarr Chase getting injured, but at least we're going to see that they have reliable options that we can kind of project into that type of role. The other thing I want to see, do they start using Joe Mixon more in the passing game? The one thing that I was able to scrape up is that in 2020, before JaMarr Chase showed up, Joe Mixon was averaging a full half reception a game more in that season. Do they go back to using Joe Mixon in the passing game? I'm hoping so. That guy needs a little bit of help to be an RB1 for the season. We want to see, especially with all the running back injuries that we have, Joe Mixon step in and be an RB1 again week to week. And I think that this could be an opportunity for him to step into that role. As far as Joe Burrow, I'm not really changing my projections much on Joe Burrow. Obviously, it hurts from a fantasy perspective to not have JaMarr Chase, but I think Joe Burrow still has enough weapons that he can be reliable week in, week out as a QB1. I'm not downgrading him to, all the way to the bottom just because JaMarr Chase is out. He has enough weapons to still be a viable asset for your fantasy team. Still probably a QB1 week in, week out, but the ceiling is not quite as high. I also worry about the Bengals just as a team winning games without JaMarr Chase. We've seen JaMarr Chase's talent bail them out in a few different games already this year. 2 huge catches for touchdowns already in the fourth quarter of games this year. I do think the offense as a whole takes a hit without JaMarr Chase commanding the type of just unbelievable attention that he does for a defense. So worry about maybe a little bit of a lull here in the first couple weeks without JaMarr Chase from just a morale perspective for the Bengals. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope this injury update helped. If it did, let me know in the comments down below if you like this type of injury breakdown a little bit more singular. One guy. We're only talking about one guy here, one injury. As always, I'm going to be doing the injury update show on Friday. Make sure you're watching that. If you like this type of content, want to know how injuries affect your fantasy teams, we got you covered here over at the Fantasy Headliners. But that's all I got for you guys on JaMarr Chase. Let me know if you have any comments, but that's all I have. The doc is out.